honored and actually excited that you have given me this opportunity to be here and talk about what I have done. Actually, I have not done all the things which you have so nicely described. They are still very small in a global context. And as I said, I graduated from DIT Ranchi and in Electronics and Communication Engineering in 1985. After that, I went to US like a lot of people from my age used to. But then what I did, one thing was I did come back to India in the mid-90s. And there are two companies, Cadence Design Systems in Delhi and Synopsys in Bangalore. So I helped set up those companies in India, and then I was the managing director of Synopsys in India. But around 2000, year 2000, I thought, like a lot of us in the stage and many of you in the crowd, that why don't we have product companies from India? We have so much of good talent all around the world. I worked in the US, worked in India, and there was no reason why we could not build technology from India, which could be world class. So with just a simple idea, where I spent 13 years of my career in chip design, VLSI industry, I switched careers completely to a new field, telecommunication equipment. And the reason for doing that was, whenever you create any product, the number one criteria which comes into play is that the market or the customers that you talk to have to be accessible to you. So it's very difficult for someone to sit in Bangalore and imagine what a product would be needed for Japan or US as a first port of call. Of course, at some point in time, you have to be a global company. And telecommunication was about to happen in India in the year 2000. We had hardly got 1% tele-density. We felt that if we can build telecommunication products from India, it could be something which could be worthwhile. We actually started on a journey. We raised venture capital. Over the years, we raised about $80 million of venture capital from all the global top investors, including Dr. Gururat Deshpande, who is the chairman, the most famous Indian entrepreneurs, Goldman Sachs and Intel and everybody else. But the lesson which I learned in all of this was very simple. I think if I were to split three phases of the company or any business that any entrepreneur would start. Number one is the idea. While it's very easy and glamorous to think that idea is the most important thing, trust me, it isn't. The execution is far more important than the idea itself. So there's a very simple saying. You would rather have a B idea with A execution versus A idea with B execution. Because, and in fact, one thing which I mentioned, I think during lunch also to some people from the government in Bihar, is that I think the execution and implementation of how the IT policies in Bihar should be and how you can leapfrog from where you are today. I think you have an A idea with A execution, which is what I think the government and everybody else is a big compliment on. So coming back to the telecommunication industry, we built from Tejas in India, from design, development, R&D, optical communication products. So if you see any fiber optic network, I can say with 99% confidence that if you make a phone call in India, or if you download any bit of information from any source of internet or broadband, it will possibly go through a Tejas system somewhere, for sure. And that gives me a good feeling, because not only have we got systems in India, now we are exporting to around 60 countries in the world. Actually, when we started Tejas, a lot of people used to ask, whose technology is it? Because in India the culture was, you took technology from someone outside, did a joint venture in India, did a transfer of technology, and then you basically did manufacturing. Actually, let me be candid about one thing in high-tech industry. In high-tech industry, the concept of transfer of technology does not exist. Nobody wants to transfer their crown jewels. Why would they transfer the crown jewels? Do you think Apple will transfer their technology to some company in India to do manufacturing? No. What they would do is they will keep the core technology to themselves, and the last 5-10%, which we used to call in Hindi Ghodagiri wala kaam, they will of course be happy to outsource and say you do manufacturing in India, you'll all be very happy about it. So the only way you create value addition in the country in ICT sector is by owning the IPR, by owning the design, by investing in R&D. And I'm very happy to say that actually you talked about 43 patents. In Tejas, in the last 2 years we have filed 150 plus patents. Many of them are global patents. We are the top 3 patent filers in India. And I can also actually take the liberty of saying that in India the highest technology award is called the CSIR award, Center for Scientific and Industrial Research, given by the Prime Minister across any sector. We are privileged enough that we have got award 2 times in the last 5 years for the products we have done. So what I'm trying to say is that products can be built in India, and instead of the transfer of technology to India, what we did is the reverse. So we actually developed the product, but what we found out is, so that's one part. So in India, building products, we have enough talent that can be built. The tougher problem, and trust me, it is the tougher problem, is selling those products. So the entrepreneurs always get infatuated that, okay, I have a great product, of course people will come and buy from me. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. So the tough part is selling. So I think one of the biggest assets that the country has today, and I talk in the context of Bihar also, is our home market. Why China succeeded in the ICT sector is still year 2000. No Chinese companies ever went outside of China. They all first focus on the domestic market, perfected the product, because when you build products, you will make mistakes. Something will be right first time, something will take a couple of rounds to get it right. And using the large home market advantage in electronics, you need economies of scale. If you produce, you may have the most efficient design in the world, but if you produce only 100 such systems, your cost will be very high. If you produce a million such systems, cost will dramatically come down. So what the Chinese did is they used their home market advantage to cross these economies of scale issues. Now, we have the same advantage in India. If you see, today in India we have 35 million broadband subscribers. And India ranks number 122 in the world in average broadband speed to a customer, 122. So if 50 million or 35 million broadband subscribers are going to become 200 million broadband subscribers say in 3 to 5 years, from 122 rank in terms of broadband speed, even if you go to top 50, look at the kind of data traffic which will get generated, look at the kind of services which can be enabled on this infrastructure, look at the kind of economic impact we can have, e-commerce impact, education, deliveries and everything. So to me, the most important thing that entrepreneur looks at is what problem to solve. And luckily in India we have enough problems to solve. So I think good news is we have enough problems to solve, we have enough talent to solve the problem, we have a large domestic market in our country. Then what is missing? Right? So at least in the electronic sector, and we started in year 2000, did 8-9 years on our own merit, fighting all the battles, because there are not too many companies in front of us in products. We found out that the way Chinese and many other Western companies succeeded was that their government supported them. And then said, okay, usual rule of thumb is government has no business to be in business, right? I think one of you mentioned it as well. But government has the business to support businesses. If the environment is created by the government, which is what really the job of the government is, the entrepreneurs will of course do the right thing. Unfortunately in India, a lot of those environment issues were challenged. There was an inverted duty structure. It was cheaper to import products than to manufacture because of the manufacturing was related with all the excise with traditional industries, where because of ITA 1, which is the WTO treaty we signed, import duties on everything was zero. So that was one inverted duty structure problem. Then the cost of money in India is very high. If you really see, it takes 3 years from starting to get to a product stage. Now who's going to fund if you even borrow from venture capital or some form of debt? Your cost of borrowing is very high. You start with a handicap in that. In fact, as recently as about 2 months back, ISA, which is the industry body along with CII in the past, had done a disability study for the Indian electronic sector. And the disability ranges between 8 to 30% compared to China. So unless government systematically takes a crack at solving this 8 to 30% disability and reducing it, no matter how hard the entrepreneurs try, they will not succeed. So what I'm very happy to say, and I was privileged enough to be involved in some of the policy making in Delhi from national electronic policy, national telecom policy, that all of the little policies you seek from the government, they are all homogenized to solve this 8 to 22 or 30% disability factor. So there's an MSIPS policy for capital subsidy, there's a export incentive which is in place for electronics products, there's a preferential market access policy which says that, like you mentioned, that if some portion of the government procurement can be kept at the same price, same quality for local companies, that ecosystem will automatically get created. They are using advantage of a home market. So all of these policies are in place, and I think the execution of that has to become a little bit faster, at least at the central level, I can say. Although at the state level, I think states do much faster. So those are all things which will come into place. So I really feel that as entrepreneurs, again, it is our responsibility to work as stakeholders. We'll all face problems, but we have to educate and position the problem in the right way, and things will get solved. So this is really where we succeeded. So the last part was globalization. One should not think of making up SME in electronic sector, because SME is a very nice concept, but electronics unfortunately is the economies of scale issue. So we should think, how do we either collaborate as SMEs and create a larger entity in a solution form, or few SMEs can become very large companies and they become the motherships around which other SMEs can solve. So for example, if you look at Cisco as a company in the Bay Area, Cisco has probably acquired more than 250 companies over the last 10 to 20 years, which has been the most important part of the ecosystem. I really think those kind of things have to happen. And in terms of globalization and scale, again a government's role has to come, the brand of India, is not yet there in terms of international exports and products, and I think that is what is getting solved. Similarly, I would say all the other infrastructural handicaps which are coming the way, that I feel the governments are doing very well. In fact, as I was saying in the morning also, the kind of telecommunication infrastructure that Bihar government is investing in is a fantastic opportunity, because I'll just give you two examples. In fact, I was sitting on the dais when one of the panelists was saying that he asked the question, what can, this infrastructure is available, what can entrepreneurs do? And one just idea came to my mind, is that if you really see, there's a citizen service center of delivering services at the significantly deep level in the state of Bihar. What if those people become entrepreneurs? And if you see e-commerce today, if you see the Flipkart, the Snapdeals of the world, they're all restricted to tier 1 and tier 2 cities. If that level of ordering can be given to even a digitally literate person, where he can get the economies of scale, he can get the cost advantage, he can buy anything of an e-commerce service which is riding on the network and the infrastructure that the government has built. I think it's a win-win model, because government can monetize beyond the infrastructure just for government services. A private sector entrepreneur in the local level, staying in his hometown, can actually generate e-commerce, very large scale. While I'm saying e-commerce, it could be airline, it could be zillions of other things. He can create economies there, and not for himself, but and give a better quality of life service to others. And for the business side of things, I mean, the e-commerce companies would love it that instead of expensive advertisement and TVs to go to tier 1 and tier 2 cities, but having no logistics infrastructure from tier 2, 3, 4, 5, you suddenly reach all of those. So this was just one illustration to say, just think differently, and that's why all of the initiatives come together, where ideas are there, entrepreneurs are there. And the last part I wanted to touch upon was the two questions that Atulji had asked, was that what are the kind of things that needed to be done from the government side and in terms of investment committees and all that. So one most important thing is the mindset change, that whenever you're going to have a venture funding, especially the early stage venture funding, there will be failures. So I think if the basic assumption is made that certain amount of failures will be there, this is not bank loans, I mean for that kind of safety net the banks are there. Once that hurdle is crossed and the systems are set up in terms of investment committee, involvement of experts and outside, I think 90% of the problem will get solved, because by and large, the whole entrepreneurial ecosystem is a very Darwinian concept. 10 people start, the fittest will survive, the others won't. But the fit who survive will hopefully generate enough, wealth to, create the ecosystem for the rest. I mean, if you really ask in the US, for every success, there are probably 10 failures. So I think even in the government system, and of course from the Indian point of view, I think they already understand that if a culture can be created where there has to be expectation certain people will fail, and just because an entrepreneur fails, it should not be that he has to attach his property, he has to give his personal guarantee, he has to ruin his life. So I think some mechanism of making sure that there is good governance, good use of money, that is one idea. And another very simple idea which Israel has implemented, and I had the opportunity to observe. So what Israel has is something called Office of Chief Scientist, which is having a $1 billion fund available to them. Their rule of thumb in investment and promoting entrepreneurship is extremely simple. They say we have no expertise to decide.
Yeah. The panel is open for the questions and answers.